Can you hear me now? Yes, 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 yes. Thank you for the physical response in the stadium. Neil's on the screen right now. Neil hopped on and did a Instagram live with me. Thank you again for that, Neil. That was pretty awesome. I'm sharing my screen. I want to remind you, first of all, I'm going to share this screen with you first. I want to remind you that when you go to, right, if you're having issues, if you wouldn't be able to hear me if you're having issues. So one of the TAs, will you please pop in the chat to use the down chevron by the microphone in order to alter your microphone settings if you're having a hard time being heard, and then also the speaker settings as well. Okay, we're making it happen, folks. My Zoom was wholly and completely down in my office, so I was a little bit freaked out that this was going to be an issue. TAs, remember to let students into the class. Here we are. This week's content. Getting myself set up for success here. Did Monday's class. This is Wednesday's class. I think you guys are becoming well practiced at this. But just as a reminder, right, find your seat, double check, make sure that you are in the correct section. Okay, folks, why? All right, I need somebody to come forward and help me. I don't understand why my screen is not showing my slides. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so it should be set as a secondary screen right now.
Okay. You have to go out of Zoom, I think, to stop sharing.
So it's up there now.
Oh, sweet mother of pearl. So that's what I have to do?
Yep, so
okay. I have never had two screens in my life. I feel like a grown-up now. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Okay. So finding our seat, doing the huge, getting into the room, signing into Zoom. Now don't forget to log your seat. TAs, obviously you don't need to do this. We'll remember where you sat. Talon, can you hear me? Can you hear me in real life and through the thing? Okay. Can you hear me now in real life? You're amazing. Talon is amazing. Talon has talents. Okay. Let's get down to content. Today, we're going to be talking about some questions from Monday. We're also going to address research methods and do our first little foray into positive psychology, which I am wicked, wicked stoked about. Okay. All right. Today, our learning objectives will be both of the research ones as well as positive psychology. We're going to articulate the differences between various research methodologies and their associated validity. We're going to demonstrate an understanding of the essential components of research design and some ethics, and then differentiate positive psychology from other disciplines. I went through the exit tickets, and I love looking at the comments, and I think that this was by far my most favorite comment that I saw from students in regards to any remaining questions from the class. And for those of you that don't get this reference, that's okay. That is okay. Negative ghostwriter. All clear. Okay. So questions, right? These are our questions. The reason why we have the exit tickets is because you guys don't have the luxury of being able to come up to the front of the class at the end of class and ask me a question. We don't have the luxury of you coming up before class to ask the question. So we do the exit tickets so we can review them and look for significant common themes. But those of you who have already emailed me, I will admit this. I have a pretty superb turnaround time, especially during the week. I even check it over the weekends for the first few weeks of class. So I know that you're not emailing me because you're wondering what kind of earrings I'm wearing today. I know that you're emailing me because you're genuinely concerned about something and time is of the essence. So I check that pretty religiously throughout the week, and then I taper it off at the weekends. So different ways to ask questions of us, but here we are. I have somebody
Henderson,
waving their hand up in the air.
the screen that's being shared with them is the wrong.
The screen is the wrong screen?
Yeah, all we can see at the moment was the seating survey slide.
Oh, well, because they moved it over to the second screen. How about that? Thank you for waving me down, folks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. This is disconnected, discombobulated communication. So, okay, yeah, we're good. All right. I'm not familiar with APA format. Can I use MLA format? Yes, you can. I put APA in our syllabus on research. And the reason why I do that is because that's what our science uses. I don't expect you to use what our science uses, okay? Just use MLA, use APA. The most important thing is that anytime on an assignment, especially when we get to our research content, you guys are submitting, right? You're submitting anything that's not of you, from you, invented by you is quoted and cited. That's the most important part there. Okay, well, now we're not advancing. All right, I've been using the chat primarily. Is that okay as long as I'm still actively participating in discussions? I would love dialogue. Dialogue is so important, and it's difficult, especially in the larger groups that we have to be in, given the limited licensing. For you to be able to have timely conversations. So if you can engage verbally, that would be awesome. Chatting is enough, though. Chat would be enough, but I'd prefer verbal engagement. Study groups, I think, are phenomenal. I'm a relational learner, so I really like to learn through talking about things and connecting with people through the content. And so if that works for you, please do that. And you can do Zoom groups. Free Zoom is 30 minutes. You have a Boise State Zoom account, which means that you can actually use that for as long as you need to. If you want to meet face-to-face, I will co-sign study groups, but it's up to you to be the adults and make sure that you're doing what you can to keep everybody safe. The due dates posted on the Blackboard schedule accurate. So what I have for our Blackboard schedule is this. Okay. Everything's screwed up now because I have two screens and I don't know what to do with this one. Okay. So on Blackboard, what we have for our class is not a listing of due dates. What we have is a list of active content. So if you look at the schedule that we have available, it basically just tells you what the weeks are and what the topics are. So Monday obviously was getting to know me, Wednesday was the course, Monday was research, Monday was history, and then today is research design. So we don't have any due dates located on this, so I wasn't entirely sure what students were referring to. Okay. In regards to that, why does it keep the insanity? On Blackboard will post and say you have X, Y, and Z due. Now, I have done my due diligence to set the due dates and the availability for the timing and scope. Because we let you submit some assessments after the due date and time for partial credit, that might throw off what Blackboard reports to you. Your default is to, look in our folder. Everything that says pre-work for Monday, that is due Sunday. Everything that says pre-work for Wednesday, that's due Tuesday. Tickets are the due on the day we have class. Okay, and weekly summaries have a note on them when they're due, and the unit essays will also have a note on them. Okay. All right. Will there ever be anything due on a day that isn't Sunday or Tuesday? Yes. Monday, we have exit tickets. Wednesday, we have exit tickets. Fridays are your weekly summaries. So yes, there are other days of the week that you need to be submitting content for the class. You're not assigned TAs. That would limit your access to them. You obviously get to go with the TA whose hours works for you. On our Blackboard course site, we have on our syllabus page, our main page, this Zoom thing gets in my way. We have all of the TAs hours. I still have a few TAs that are working on getting me hours and links, but these links take you to a scheduling Google Calendar, what you have as a student, and then these are the available times. So this is showing it in my calendar. And so it'll show up in your calendar, but you'll be able to sign up for any of these TA times. You just put in your information. And if you're already logged in, as soon as you click on any one of those time slots, so this is 9 a.m. to 9:10. This is 9:30 to 9:40. This must be 9:10 to 9:20. That's how those are broken up. Go away. All right, I know, so much fun, lots of logisticals. When can you expect the videos of the lectures to be posted? Because it's over an hour long video, it takes quite a while to download, so it uploads to the cloud. It takes about an hour to upload to the cloud. I strive to have them up by the next day at the latest. I prefer to have them up day of, but it just depends on how long it takes for them to upload to the cloud and then get uploaded into YouTube, that of which I don't have any control over. TAs, before I move on, what questions do we have? Anything showing up in the chat? Okay.
Yeah, we have some questions about Monday since it's Labor Day. There's no class, but people want to know if there's still pre-work due for Monday.
Yes, there's still pre-work due for Monday. We're going to keep that rhythm, the one that we've had already this semester, just to ensure continuity. But yeah, there's work that needs to be completed by Sunday. You have access to all of that already. You have access to everything. The only thing you don't have access to right now is the exit ticket, and that will be made available at the end of class today.
Will they still have an exit ticket on Monday too?
No, no exit ticket. And I made note of that in our Blackboard course site. If you go into our course site and open up the content for week 3, which is what you're preparing for, you will see on the outside of the folder, it's highlighted blue, none for this week because of the holiday, and there's no exit ticket because of the holiday.
Will there be a lecture posted for Monday?
No. Nope. I've got it set up so where we will cover the relevant content all on Wednesday. Good question. It's technically a holiday, so I don't know if it would be legit for me to give you a whole lecture for that day since we're supposed to have it off. Yeah, since we're supposed to have it off, but we need to keep time with our coursework, and in order for us to do that again in this 10-week session, we've got to have use that Monday to submit content. All right, TAs, any other questions about Blackboard while I'm in here? Awesome. Okay.
Dr. Henderson?
Yeah.
We just got a question from Cassie, and she's asking, would you mind if we did pre-work a couple classes in advance?
You can do pre-work as soon as it's available. Yeah, absolutely. So right now you could do all the pre-work for next week. The only thing you wouldn't be able to do are the exit tickets. Thank you for that, Haley. All right, TAs, keep making sure that we let people into that waiting room. All right, moving on to our content. When we talk about research, we have several priorities. We talked on Monday about these threads that we try to pull through. We talked about application, we talked about continuums, we talked about ethics, right? And we also talked about diversity. When we conduct research, anytime we do a study on something, we need to make sure that we're really clear about what we're studying. So we focus a lot of time and energy working on what we call operational definitions. Now, operational definitions are descriptions of what and how we are measuring the phenomenon that we're interested in. Okay, so if I were to say, I'm going to study love. Okay, let's say that that's what I'm going to study. I'm going to study love. How many different conceptualizations are there of love, right? Pop something into the chat, right? How would you conceive of love? How would you measure love? What would it look like? Go ahead and pop into the chat how you would define love. Love is a relationship, connection, affection, trust, amount of time that you spend, familiarity, honesty, intimacy, feeling, effort, communication, pleasure. Love is unconditional, right? All of the above. So when we talk about operationally defining something, we have to narrow that down, right? Because I might use a wholly different conceptualization of love than you do. So if I'm a good researcher, I'm going to say, I am studying companionate love, right? Which according to developmental theories is the love that happens later on in life once we surpass periods of time where we have a great degree of chemistry and passion and things like that. And we really start to develop a relationship that is recentered on friendship and about companionship. And so I want to study companionate love. Okay, so it's not just enough for me to say companionate love. Who do I want to do companionate love between? Because you can have companionate love with somebody who's considered a romantic partner versus somebody who's considered a platonic partner. Okay, whether or not there's any sexual relationship in there at all, it's not going to dictate that relationship. So that's going to qualify that relationship even more. So the what is companionate love, and I would say between friends, right? Gender would matter, gender identity and gender would matter. Sex and gender would matter. And then I would also want to maybe look at how long they've been friends, right? So when we do operational definitions, we're really trying to narrow down as far as we can, as much as we can, the concept that we're interested in. So that when somebody else comes along to replicate our study, which if you guys remember from the scientific method is the holy grail, right? That's the last thing you do is you look to replicate. You want to write your research science up clearly enough so that people want to do your study, they can do your study again, and they don't have to guess at what anything means. So we create a really detailed operational definition, and then we need to talk about how we're going to measure it, right? How many different ways do you think we can measure love? Some people had mentioned amount of time, communication, right? It could be how often you provide instrumental support. It might be how often you're physically affectionate. In this operational definition, we need to be able to also say how we are going to measure what we're looking at. So in any science, you're going to see a clear conceptualization of the phenomenon of interest and how we actually measure that. And that's that operational definition, critical, like the lowest hanging fruit on our research design. Sometimes the clicker works, sometimes it doesn't. In addition to operational definitions, another aspect of research that we, of course, utilize very frequently are experiments. Now, one of our research learning objectives today is to be able to differentiate. Experiments occur when there is some manipulation. Now, if I were to survey you guys right now, and I were to say, this isn't obviously psychologically grounded, but if I were to survey you right now and I'd say, what's your Wi-Fi connectivity like? Okay. If I were to survey you and ask you that, that's not an experiment. That's actually what we call a correlational descriptive study. Now, if I were to cut off the Wi-Fi on this half, right, sections 7 and 8 and 29 and 30, if I were to cut off the Wi-Fi receivers that feed to this part of the stadium, but leave the other ones on, that would be an experiment because I've done a manipulation. I have constrained the environment. I have changed the environment. Other very common experiments that we talk about a lot are interventions where somebody is, you know, suffering, or let's say a student intervention for studying, right? So students really struggling with a class. An intervention that we might employ is I might offer an hour of review in the arena prior to the final. Okay, and everybody gets that. And I give you a pre-test first, and then we do the review, and then I give you a post-test. Okay, that's still not an experiment. Okay, it's, pardon me, it's still not a full experiment, right? I'm still testing something, I'm still asking questions, but really it's still just a correlational and descriptive study. An experiment would be if I hold this hour of review and I, what could I do? And I hold this hour of review and I schedule it during a time that's really obnoxious, like 6:30 a.m. So only people who are willing to get up and come into this space at 6:30 a.m. are going to receive this. And I know people are going to self-select into that obnoxious time. And by the way, your brain doesn't work very well at that time of day. I know most of you already feel that and know that, okay? But science definitely supports it. So, and then I offer another review session, let's say it's 6:30 at night, right? Equally awful, if you can believe it, equally awful in regards to cognitive capacity. And I know students are going to self-select into each one of those times. And then I give you a pre-test and a post-test. Because I've manipulated, right, the offerings, because I've constrained it and not allowed people to have equal access to both offerings, fundamentally, I'm already creating different groups. So when we asked you for your choose your own adventure to get ready for today, to write up your own hypothesis or scientific statement, really what you're laying out there, because you identified an independent and dependent variable, you are writing about an experiment. A descriptive or a correlational study is one that we conduct just in natural occurrences without really trying to manipulate any factors. So I could survey the Wi-Fi. I could survey your first week in the semester. I could just ask you, how are things going? You know, what does that look like? And we call that correlational and descriptive because we're just asking you about natural occurrences. We're not constraining the environments at all. So when we talk about experiments, we are definitely talking about manipulation. Now, I already mentioned this, but I'm going to highlight it again, independent and dependent variables. I know that you guys have already spent some time on this. You've watched some videos. You've created one yourself. Okay, we're going to debrief on those here in just a minute. I'm also going to take you through some examples. The reason why being able to identify an independent and dependent variable is important is because as a consumer, right? As a consumer, somebody who is maybe considering taking medications, maybe wondering if an intervention for your child that the school is proposing would actually be effective. Understanding independent and dependent variables lets you understand what's being manipulated, what the experimental factors are, and what the expected outcomes are. So we're going to give this one a shot, okay? There will be a statistically significant difference in graduation rates of at-risk high school seniors who participate in an intensive study program, as opposed to at-risk high school seniors who do not participate in the intensive study program. Now I want you to go ahead, for yourself, identify the independent and dependent variable. Okay? Now that you have that, I am going to, somebody needs to hand me host. Whoever accidentally has host needs to make me the host.
I think Meg is the host.
Yeah, Meg, you're currently the host. You need to hand it over to me. Go into participants, select my name, select more. Great, perfect, perfect. Okay, now I'm gonna send you guys out into a breakout room. And what I want you to do is I want you to discuss what your what the independent and dependent variables are in that group. Okay, I'm not going to give you long. It'll be a quick conversation. And I've got new rules here. The person with the longest name has to speak first. The longest last name has to speak first. Apparently there have been some issues.
They want
Is
to know if they
there-
could see the prompt again.
Yes, I'm going to put the prompt in the chat before we break out.
Thank you.
You bet. Oh, here it is. Okay, prompt is headed into the chat. There we go. Sending that to everyone. And now creating rooms. Pop into your breakout rooms, and I'll let you know when you have a minute to be back. Okay, for those people still in our main room, I'm not entirely sure why you are still in here. I think you haven't joined in to your other room. You need to select join room in order to pop into your discussion space. Thank you. Okay, Nick, Mary, Ona, let me know if you need any help navigating to the place that you're supposed to be. You are? You're totally bragging. Here, turn your screen. I'll pop in over here. Yeah, she's this close to the action. It's happening right here. All right, folks, we should just about all be back in the main room. Yep. Come on back, folks. All right. All right, I'm looking at the chat. So let's do this. What did you identify as the independent variable? Okay, no headphones in the lobby. Sorry, Ashley. The study program, the study program, the study program, the study program. Okay, awesome. Now, why is that the independent variable? Because it's manipulated, because it changed, because it's deliberately changed. Awesome, awesome. Independent means manipulated. Good job, folks. So when we talk about our independent and dependent variables, our independents are the things that change, right? So I have it highlighted blue. And our dependent, we're not going to mine on that one, is the graduation rates of high school seniors, of at-risk high school seniors. Can anybody struggle with finding the dependent variable? A good way to remember the dependent variable is that that's what we're measuring, okay? That's what we predict there to be change on, right? When we say that we're measuring the difference between two groups on a phenomenon, that's the phenomenon we're interested in, and what we do between the two groups is what we're conducting as the experiment. That's the independent variable. Now, I really do think that this is one of the most important tasks, so I'm going to give you another one. A researcher wanted to know whether the number of people present would influence subjects' judgment on a simple perceptual task. In each case, the other members of the group gave an incorrect answer. The researcher then noted whether the subject conformed to the group's decision. We're
Dr.
going to,
Henderson,
yeah,
could we share the slides again?
yes, we can share the slides again. Thank you.
Thank you.
So here we go. So this is our next one. Researcher wanted to know whether the number of people present would influence subjects' judgment on a simple perceptual task. In each case, the other members of the group gave an incorrect answer. The researcher then noted whether the subject conformed to the group's decision. So I already have set up. I've got the prompt in the chat, and I'm going to put you guys into some more breakout rooms again. I want you to, again, identify the independent and dependent variables. Okay? Simple as that. Back to the same room. Oh. Talon, do you want me to put you in a discussion group? Yeah, you don't mind? Okay. right, for the folks that just popped in, how did that go? Brianna Tillett. Go ahead and unmute yourself and let me know how that went. Maybe Brianna's not at their computer. How about Sophia? All right, working my way across the screen. How about Jake?
Say that again. What was your question?
How did it go?
It went good. I think we identified the independent variable to be what was it? Hold on, I'm just getting the prompt back up.
That's okay. It's in the chat.
Oh, okay, 1 second. I think our independent was the subject's judgment, or sorry, the dependent was the subject's judgment, and the independent was the number of people present.
Excellent. Good job. Good job. All right. Well, you guys got that damn fast. So I'm going to close all rooms. Thank you. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate it, Jake. All right, so we should be wrapping up rooms here. And when I change my screen to this, it shows me talking. Excellent, excellent. Okay. So again, more independent, dependent variables. I forgot to tell you to have the person with the shortest last name to start speaking, but it sounds like you guys were able to facilitate that pretty easily, or the longest last name. Now, here we are, right? I had a group pop in earlier and they got it right. The number of people present is the independent variable, and judgments on a simple perceptual task was what was being measured, okay? Right? Conformity. Conformity is our outcome variable. Conformity is what their judgment on the task is globally. When you see a question, and you will see a question like this in the near future about being able to identify independent and dependent variables, you want to keep it as simple as possible, okay? What's being manipulated and what's being measured. So what's being measured is judgment. What we extrapolate from their judgments, right? What we extrapolate from that is their conformity. But we will just want to focus on what's measured. Any questions about how that's differentiated? Okay. All right. Last one. An investigator had 60 subjects watch a videotaped reenactment of a bank robbery. Half of the subjects were asked by a police investigator to recall the event, while the remaining subjects were interviewed by a police investigator while they were hypnotized. Okay, while they were hypnotized. I am going to set you guys up in breakouts. I want you guys to have the person with the longest last name speak first. And I'm going to paste the prompt into our chat so you have that with you. And there it is in your chat, and I will send you to your breakout rooms and see you in a few.
I think this is the wrong one.
What was that?
I think you pasted the one from last time in the chat.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
How about this?
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Dr. Henderson, I might have gotten kicked out of a group because my Wi-Fi kicked me off of the Zoom. So I'm not sure if I have to
You're not in trouble for that, Meg. You're okay.
Okay.
You can sit this one out if you want. Actually, I'm gonna put you in this room.
Okay.
There you go. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Do you have a pen I can borrow? Are you worried about me getting it mucky? I don't. Oh, I can't write on pink paper. That works. That works. Thank you. I'll disinfect it. Hey, Vivian, what's happening? You keep popping out pretty quick. Is there a technical issue there? Or did your group get done? Group got done. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And last time I got like left in the room, like I didn't come back to the discussion.
Oh,
So
that's fascinating.
I learned how to leave the room.
You learned how to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
So how did you guys do? What'd you guys come up with as your independent, dependent variables?
The independent were if the subject was hypnotized or not, and then
Okay.
the dependent was how they recalled the reenactment of the bank robbery.
Great. Generally, when we say recall, we mean accuracy of recall, but good job. And good job sticking to the words that you were given. A lot of students will like extrapolate and they'll say accuracy. They'll say these other things, and that's actually not correct. You always want to just stick with what you're given in the prompt.
Okay.
So good job. Is it Vivian? Is that how you pronounce that? Vivian, is that how you say your name? Brilliant. Thank you so much. You can mute yourself, but I do appreciate it.
Okay.
I know. That's okay, because right now they're in breakouts. As soon as I close the breakouts, then I'll screen share again. Yeah. All right, you guys are keeping me honest. Here we go. Last one. We have our independent and dependent variables. Whether or not the individual was hypnotized is the independent variable, because that's what varied between the two groups. And then their accuracy of their recall, or their recalling of the event. Anybody else have a different answer? Go ahead and pop that into the chat if you feel like you had an answer that didn't jive with this. And if there's a rationale associated with it, that would be awesome. And in fact, if you don't want to type it into the chat, you could just open up your mic and give us a little talking to.
I thought the independent was like the number of subjects in the group, and then the dependent was if they were hypnotized or not.
Okay, so dependent is what we're measuring. Okay, are we measuring whether or not they're hypnotized, or are
No.
we measuring their recall?
The recall.
See, I mean, that's like when I see a research study, I ask myself two questions: what's measured, and then what's manipulated? What's different between the two groups? So we had 60 subjects watch it, and we said half, right? So 30 went in one and 30 went in the other. So that's not really differentiated, the number of groups. What you want to focus on is what is different between the two groups that you have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. It can be tricky. This can be tricky. We're going to give you, more opportunities to do this, but this is so important. It's so important because when you later on in life are trying to understand something and you want to understand what is impacting, right? What are these people interested in, and are these doing these things well? I'm on a board of a committee here in town. And anytime somebody presents us with research, this is the first question that I ask them, right? What's different about these two groups that you're telling me about? If you only tell me about the group that got to go to your camp and you don't tell me what it's like for kids that don't go to camp, I don't know if you're really looking at something meaningful. So I need to have those two groups, right? What's different between them? And then what are we measuring that is similar? Okay, now, we covered operational definitions, we covered experiments, we covered independent, dependent variables. The next thing that I want to speak to is generalizability. Now this goes back to the thread that we were talking about on Monday, about diversity, right? About ethics, about continuum, and about application. Generalizability is how well I can take the results of my study and apply it to different people. We talked on Monday about the issue with diversity, right? If we are leaving out minorities, if we are leaving out genders, if we're leaving out gender identities, if we're not acknowledging and recognizing those things, we are not going to be able to talk about everybody, right? We're going to be able to talk about this singular specific group of people. Now, I know I mentioned something like this on Monday, but let me be clear. The most significant population of study is you guys, okay? We use freshman Psych 101 students for such a huge percentage of our research in these here United States, and now even across the country. And we use them, right, because they're really easy, low-hanging fruit. Now with the advent of the internet and now the expansiveness, right, we're able to collect lots of data. But if I'm running a website, right, if I'm running a website and my website caters to males that are 10 to 16 years of age, and I want to conduct a study about female empowerment, I'm not going to want to use that website, right? So even on the internet, we have to be mindful of how we're collecting that population. Generalizability, you want to focus on what the sample is. What was their age? What were their genders? What were their identities? Okay? What were their socioeconomic status? What was their family home like? All of that informs a lot of human behavior and mental processes, and understanding generalizability and understanding that population allows us to clearly draw a line, right, between me and somebody else, right? So if I'm looking at research, I'm going to look at research that's conducted on, women in their 40s. Right? Cisgendered women in their 40s. That's the data that's going to be relevant and applicable to me. Now, sometimes we can ferret out and we can remove gender, we can remove race, we can remove socioeconomic status, we can remove identity, and still account for a lot of that human behavior, but we have to acknowledge it. So in order for content to be generalizable, we have to conduct a reasonable study, which means we need to have a good population, and we also want to have random assignment. Now, I know that somebody had asked a question about this earlier. We now have research. It is showing on our course Blackboard. I'm going to flip this so I see it as you see it. If you are younger than 18 years of age, your default is to option 1 is not available to you. You have to do option 2. So we have 2 options for research. Your responsibility is to come with questions on Wednesday. If you get in here and you start to do this work, I guarantee you that some of you are going to be done with your research before you even come to class on Wednesday. Okay, this is the experimentation that I just mentioned. having you participate in experiments as a subject. One of the reasons why we love doing it in Psych 101 isn't just so we have people we can study, but because you're studying this science right now, we want you to be a participant in it. Now, if you don't want to participate, if you don't want to be a subject, or if you're younger than 18 years of age, option 2 is providing a review of research articles. It's equivalent in length and it's equal in points. So if you don't want to be a subject in the participant pool, then you can opt in and do a research summary review of an article. I'm not going to address any questions on this today. It's on you to look at that information between now and when we meet on Wednesday, so you're able to ask good informed questions on Wednesday. Okay? All right. Timely context to bring up research. The last thing I want to point out, and I've already discussed this, are correlational and descriptive studies. Correlational and descriptive studies are, as I'd mentioned earlier, oftentimes studies where there is no manipulation whatsoever, and we're just collecting data. They're correlational because we're not saying A causes B, we're saying that there's a relationship. So there's a relationship between sandals and the weather outside. As the weather outside, the temperature increases, the preponderance of sandals on campus also increases. That's a correlation. Warm weather doesn't cause Birkenstocks, right? It doesn't create more sandals, but those two factors are relating to each other, and that's a correlation. It's also a descriptive study in that as the temperature changes and the heat rises, we want to be cooler, so we end up wearing less shoes. Brady, I can be a human lab rat. Sign me up. Okay, all right. That's positive. Okay. So we've talked about research, right? We've talked about descriptive studies. We've talked about experiments. We've talked about independent, dependent variables. We've talked about the difference between an experiment and a correlational study. Now I want to shift gears and accomplish our final objective of the day, which is to introduce and describe. A lot of you have already covered some of this content in your curiosity and your expansions. We're going to talk about positive psychology. Now, I didn't know this until just recently, but remember my Muppet, Abraham Maslow, that cute little guy, right, from Monday? Well, he actually coined the term positive psychology back in the 60s and 70s. I did not know that, right? So that's new information to me, which makes me very happy, because Abraham Maslow is one of my favorites, and positive psychology is just an area that to me is, I mean, if I'm going to spend my time researching something, I want to research what makes things right, because doing the things that help things be right helps to avoid those things going bad in the first place, or going awry in the first place. So the P in our philosophy of flourishing, right? We have a P. Go ahead and type in the chat. What do you think P stands for? I think most of you have already gone through the content, so hopefully you know what P stands for when we refer to flourishing. Take a stab. Psychology. Okay. All right. Just kidding. Thank you for that. Positive emotions. Excellent. Positive. Positive. Yes. P is for positive emotions. E is for, go ahead and switch to E in the chat. Engagement. Yes. R is, what's R stand for? Flow. Okay. Well, that's the engagement. Relationships. Brilliant. M is connected to meaning. And then A is associated with accomplishment, achieving an accomplishment. M, mac and cheese. Brady, you are sassy. Okay, so I'm not sure why it just did that. Positive emotions, right? One of the reasons why Martin Seligman moved away from the concept of happiness and focusing on happiness is because happiness is an emotion. We're going to talk about emotions next week. And happiness is one of our 6 universal emotions. It's something that we see across all cultures, and we all identify it very similarly, right? It's a nonverbal response that has the individuals, sometimes their teeth are exposed, sometimes they're not, but the corners of their mouth are turned up, their cheeks get full, they get crinkles on the sides of their eyes. That is happiness, okay? Martin Seligman wrote this book and it was hot and everybody loved it and it sold millions of copies. And then he was like, you know what? I think I got it wrong. I'm not focusing on the right thing when I talk about happiness, because happiness is just an affect. When there are all of these other components that contribute to what we really should be talking about, which is well-being and flourishing. So I teach a class called the Art and Science of Happiness. And in this class, what we focus on is how do we capitalize, nurture, and facilitate our own well-being through looking at these flourishing concepts. So the lowest hanging fruit is positive emotions. My students just completed a task this last week where they had to take an awe quiz. And this quiz was about how do you appreciate life? How do you engage in the space? What do you find inspirational? Okay, in this experience of awe. And then we facilitated content on awe and talked about some examples related to awe. But awe, while it isn't happiness, is a positive emotion. It's something we want to capitalize on. Optimism is also a positive emotion and something that we would like to capitalize on. Now, P, right, positive emotion. E is engagement, and somebody in the chat put in the word flow, and basically that's what engagement translates to, is to flow. Flow is this concept that was developed by this gentleman named Mikhail, and I cannot pronounce the last name, but Mikhail proposed this idea that there is this magic combination of challenge and focus that results in this experience of flow. Yes? Did you mean to unmute? I think somebody accidentally unmuted. So this magical combination of focus and challenge. And Mikhail says that you can't just do something that you do all the time, because that's kind of brain dead. You want something that's just outside of your range of capability in order to keep you reaching, in order to keep you striving towards something. And he also suggests that this engagement, you get so focused in this engagement, it's as if time stops. Okay, you forget your place. Maybe you forget to eat. Maybe all of a sudden you realize that you need to do things like drink water, and you're really thirsty and you've been thirsty for hours and you didn't realize it. That is the concept of flow, that full engagement, that complete enmeshment. Now, relationships, not just romantic relationships. Okay, these are all the relationships across the continuum. As a parent, as a child, as a friend, as a sibling, as a partner, as a colleague, all of these are relationships. And the science and how relationships contributes probably is the most frequently studied content up there on the board. Okay, and we're going to take some time as we move through this course content, and we're going to reflect on all of these as we work through our content. Meaning is how we assign our purpose and our value, right? Even the mundane things, right? What does this do? I got home from work on Monday and I proceeded to, Monday was my husband's 46th birthday. I had pre-made lasagna, right? I had the lasagna ready. I had his favorite salad ready. I had his favorite dessert ready, okay? But it was hours before he was gonna get home when I got home. So I went ahead, I cleaned all the bathrooms, right? Cleaned up the kitchen, all of that. And all I could think the whole time I was doing this was, damn, I love a clean house, right? One of the things that I realized when we were sheltering in place is that I am so easily distracted by other shit, right? I do not do well in my home. I would not, if I had to teach remotely, I would not be in my home teaching from my house. I would have to be in my office. I would have to be somewhere. Although last time we had to go to remotely at the last minute, they turned off the heat in our building. So maybe if they turned off the air conditioning, I might be in trouble, but I get so distracted by all of these things. But I know that when I clean that house and I have it dialed in and I feel good about where it's at, I know that I'm going to be able to focus better. So even though I'm doing something that I don't particularly enjoy, it's the value, it's the meaning that I assigned what I was doing that made what I was doing just that much easier and that much more meaningful to me. Here's the thing. You guys are an emerging adulthood, right? Emerging, for the majority of you, are an emerging adulthood. And in this emerging adulthood, you're actually working on one of your final big cognitive hurdles, where you're taking in the world and you're assigning it meaning, and you're deciding, does this fit me or does this not fit me? And the things that don't fit you, you set aside, right? Trust me, you're going to take several classes that you do not care about. You get to set that aside. But those things that mean something to you, you get to integrate those. You get to make meaning out of them and have them become part of your understanding of the world and yourself. That's what you're doing right now, is you are making meaning. And the last piece of the flourishing hypothesis is this experience of accomplishment. Now, we go back and forth on that, right? We can talk about SMART goals. I'll tell you this, the science is a little bit mixed on how important goals are. Because when you set a goal to do something, so I'll set a goal to run a marathon. I'll set a goal to run a marathon, and then once I do that and I run a marathon, I'm done, right? Where does my striving go? Well, then do I decide to run an ultra marathon? Do I decide to run maybe a harder marathon? Right? I could do one of those things, but the research is really strong that maybe what we should do instead is, instead of focusing on these singular demarcations of goals, right, and accomplishments, to focus on competencies. So I don't want to just run one thing. I want to run well, and I want to feel good doing it, right? I would, if I had to run a marathon today, I would not feel good doing it, right? That's just not happening. But what you do want to do is you want to focus on getting better, right? What is it that you want to improve on? Rather than setting a benchmark to say, oh, I'm done with that. Set competency goals, right? I want to be able to, you know, go out and run 5 miles with a moment's notice and feel good about it, right? And actually like enjoy the run itself. That would be a competency. That would be something to work towards, and not necessarily a goal, because you're not going to achieve that happiness all the time. But it's a competency to build towards. Okay, on our Blackboard course site, I had a few people ask questions about these. For this first week of actual psychological science, we wanted to make sure and take an opportunity to represent some people of color's content. You know, we call it the founding fellows, right? Formerly known as the old white dudes, because given opportunities, given privileges of the time, and even today, right, given those privileges, the ability for individuals to get their message out was very constrained, right? It was very limited, especially given wealth and definitely race associated with that. So we included some information from a few non-for-profit areas that represented persons of color and the research contributions that they've made. And then we have a few activities up here. Picking a subfield, right? I highly encourage you to go out, pick a subfield that you're curious about. I think there's something like 86 subfields in psychology right now. So if you can dream it, it's probably already there. And then the other optional activity is to go in and look at different research and actions. Look at current studies and see their implications throughout our culture and throughout the science. Now, this is purely if you're curious, okay? We know that sometimes students don't know where to go. They really liked a concept or an idea and they weren't sure where to start. This is to get you started. This is to get you into the psychological content. This is to get you into the web and give you some reputable resources. So if you want to follow some more curiosities, you know where to look. Now, this explore piece is not a requirement for the class. Okay, it's just something we wanted to make sure was available for you so you could follow any and all curiosities you might have had. All right, before I move on to the next slide, do we have any questions about any of the content that we've covered? Anything about independent, dependent variables, generalization? Sophia, I don't think accomplishment could be simplified over quality over quantity, because for some people, accomplishment might be about mass, might be about reaching a certain number. I do think that quality definitely reigns supreme when we talk about accomplishments, but I don't think that's an accurate way to talk about competencies versus structured goals. I appreciate the comment though. Okay, see this QR code here? if you're sitting in this class, I want you to scan that. If you're not sitting in the class, you obviously don't need to worry about it. This is purely the wireless services. They need to have a survey on how things worked today, given your current position in the classroom. And when you are done with that, please feel free to flow out through exit 3. And here's my little steward action. Yes, yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Dr. Henderson, did you see the last chat by Skylar? Oh, it just says, thank you. I really enjoy listening to these lectures.